Today's dilemma on Real Garage is to figure out how to get gas into the fuel cell from the outside of the car. Normally you had to fill this car from behind the pulled down license plate. But since we exchanged the stock gas tank for a racing fuel cell, that's not an option anymore. My thought is to punch a hole in the side of the quarter panel and install a swing open fuel door with all the internals from a junk car to kind of make it look stock appearing and smooth. I'm at one of the wrecking yards that I frequent. I'm looking for that fuel door. I made myself a template that matches the contour of my quarter panel. So now it's just a matter of checking if we can find something that matches. After visiting a couple yards and finding exactly what I needed, I'm forced into another option. You know, I really didn't find exactly what I was looking for, and the extra work it would have taken to make one of those fit my car would have been extensive. It's tough because I really haven't found another example of somebody doing this to their car. But what I did find is a company called Hagen Street Rod Necessities. And they sell a fuel filler kit for hot rods. And they make a few different styles for flat panels and tight curve panels and slight contour panels. And this is a slight curve model, and it almost fits my quarter panel perfectly. The instructions tell you to cut out the entire rectangle area, which I was planning on doing anyway, and then weld this assembly flush to the panel. Just the thought of cutting a hole into a perfectly good quarter panel gives me a lot of acid reflux. But I'm not willing to keep opening the trunk lid to fill this thing with gas. So I think it's time to visit a friend of mine, Ronnie Hoover, and get the real scoop on welding body sheet metal and warping.
Ronnie, you in here?
Yeah, come on in. About time you come see me.
Hey, bud. I talked to you on the phone, and I'm got that Trans Am project.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I want to put, a filler hole on the side of my quarter panel.
Okay.
Because I put a fuel cell in it, an actual racing fuel cell, and I figured I'd, come talk to you a little bit about, working on some of that thinner gauge material.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some quarter panel work before, replacing whole quarter panels, but now I'm literally going to be cutting a pretty large square out to put this thing
in the middle of a panel.
Yeah, in the middle of a panel.
Yeah.
So
kind of sketchy.
My first quarter panel I put on when I was 15.
Right.
Right? And so it's like, it's like your first kiss.
I know. I know that feeling.
It could be good, or you might want to do over.
Oh, yeah.
I want to come talk to you. You've been in the business how long?
45 years.
45 years.
Yep.
So I figure if anybody can help me with that warping issue.
Definitely, I've tried it all. So I hope I can help you.
Okay. This is a little outside of my comfort zone.
Right.
So if we could cut a couple pieces or do some sample hits. And
I got a shear. We'll chop up some pieces, and we'll do some light metal work, and that way you can kind of get an idea of how I do it and how you do it, and we'll mix them together and make it better.
Okay, perfect.
I made some steppers, and you can see the step is probably 30 thou, 40 thou, and you just go in, and that way you can recess a part of your panel, so when you overlap, it can set right on top of them. That way you keep it flush. And that's the thought behind it.
But yeah, I think that also helps with some of the warping, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. It puts a crease in it, which in turn makes the piece stronger.
Stiffer.
And also, stiffer, and also creates less of a problem for warpage. And metal, that's the whole deal, is trying to keep your metal from not warping.
Right.
So we'll do some tacking on some 20 gauge here, just kind of show you kind of what I do and how I go about it.
Okay.
And the reason I'm running it off the table here is just for the heat soak. It'll give you more of a realistic feel on the tack. On the side of a quarter panel, you don't have this backing the surface.
Right.
So there's two things. It'll support your metal, and it'll draw the heat out of your metal.
Sure.
So that's not a good representation of what you're going to actually be doing on the car.
Yep, makes sense. So what's your opinion on forced air cooling? I've tried it both ways. I I don't myself see a big difference in it, but some people think that if you're forcing the air on it, you're maybe forcing it to warp faster. I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I've been doing it for a while. I like the forced air cooling.
Okay.
I've tried a lot of different ways. I've tried, back in the day before I got a wire welder, I'd used to braze quarter panels on, and I'd use cold water in a bucket.
Oh.
So, and of course you got to worry about rust and all that future, down the road. But no, the forced air is definitely, for me, it's always worked well.
Okay.
It's, for what I do, it's definitely worked the best.
Does it create a harder weld?
It'll make it a little harder, but we're going to grind the surface anyway.
Yeah.
And, if you're concerned about the heat from the grinding disc, you can always go coarser on the disc,
right.
And it's more aggressive, so you get on it quicker and get off of it quicker, and less chance for heat absorption through the metal.
I see. So if instead of, maybe use a 36 or a 50 grit,
right,
instead of
80
or 120,
right,
where you're just on it all the time, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So
on and off.
Yep.
That's the key with all this welding.
Okay.
Same way.
Yep.
Not particularly on this application, but on a larger panel, what I would do, I would get my tape measure and I would lay out, consistent marks across the panel. It does a couple things. It gives me a guide. Like I'd go every 1.5 inches to start with, and then I'd come back and go in between.
Okay.
And that way I'm consistent with my welds and I can spread them out. I'll always start from the center out anyway, and then I can space them out and I'll cool as I go, but also it gives me a good consistent, heat soak.
Okay.
And I can control that heat soak. Now if I was more random, I may get lost on where I'm at.
Right.
So this way it kind of keeps it organized, and also it's easier. It looks nicer too. If somebody was to walk in, you always want to look professional.
Right.
Not to, maybe your application, but anyway, you run a business. You always want to look good. So,
sure.
But anyway, that's what I do, and like I said, I'll do it on a large panel.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. You see how I'm moving around on the panel?
Yep. Now, how fast would you weld all those? I mean, if you're going pretty fast.
Yeah, it's habit, and a lot of years I've probably kind of acquired that speed. Now, what I would probably do now is I'd probably stop and do a cool off, cool the panel.
So you don't hit one spot and then cool it?
No, I'll do a heat soak. There'll be a little bit of a heat soak, but if you don't get carried away and you don't stay on the panel too long, like you can see the amount of time I stayed on the panel, you won't have issues.
Yeah, they're pretty quick tasks.
Yeah, they're pretty quick, and that's another reason I've got the welder turned up to a little hotter than this is 20 gauge,
right?
And I'm on 18 gauge.
Okay.
So it actually. I like a hotter tack. I know I won't stay on there long enough to get a heat soak that'll hurt it.
Right.
And I get good penetration.
It's hotter, but it's quicker. It's
hotter,
faster,
but quicker.
Right? Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
Definitely hotter,
kind of
but
like
quicker.
cooking a steak. You can do it low and slow, or
right.
hotter and quicker, but
Yep.
Eventually you got a done steak.
That's it. And just over time I've kind of acquired this process, and I'm not going to say it's 100% right, but it works for me.
Yep. And this place it's cool
Yeah.
after you hit that with the blower, so you could come back now again and hit a couple more in between there and then cool it again.
Yeah, I'll go in between again.
Okay.
And I'll keep working that process till I get the panel covered. And like I said, we got 100% coverage.
Yep.
And if you can look at the weld, and it's definitely no warpage.
Yeah, and on the back side you got, like you say, you still have your penetration.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Well, that was a great demonstration. I think I learned that air is the way to go for me, and if I get a little anxious, I might be giving you a call. But
well, I doubt that'll happen, but I'm here if you need me.
Awesome.
At any time.
Thank you, sir. You're the best.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Yep, same here.
The more I keep looking at this, I think I have an idea that will help me eliminate the warping issue and having the exact contour for the panel. What if I just cut the door opening and then spot weld the whole assembly from the back side? Then all I have to do is readjust the flipper door flush with the panel. Or I could take the piece that I cut out and weld that to the top of the door, and that would make it flush too. Either way, if I screw it up, I can always go back to the original install instructions. So this is what I did in order to cut the hole in my quarter panel. First, I made a paper template of the door opening, and then I transferred that to the quarter panel. Then I made a plasma template out of 1/4-inch plywood that I steamed over a pot of boiling water so that it could take the shape of the quarter panel. And remember, when making plasma guides, allow for half the width of the plasma tip. Otherwise, your cut shape is going to be too small. Remember, read and follow all labels and your owner's manual. With the template fastened to the quarter panel, I can just run my plasma torch along the edge. I've set the plasma as low as possible to keep the width of the cut narrow. Smooth the cut area if needed, and remove any dross from the back with an angle grinder. Before I weld this in the quarter panel, I need to TIG weld this filler tube into the box. I'll be using silicon bronze filler metal for this, so it keeps the heat sink lower to reduce warping. When TIG welding silicon bronze, set your machine for DC like you were TIG welding steel. Now to make a few plug weld holes in the quarter panel, secure in place with the Cleco fasteners and weld. I've got my machine set for the 18 gauge setting. Let's Cleco the cutout piece to the door and see how things match up. I am happy with that. Next time on Real Garage, we'll be doing another quick-a-sode. I'll be comparing the Multimatic 235 versus the Millermatic 255, and then a real project to help optimize your garage space.